Hey everybody, Koldar here. Today we're looking at the Gara'jal the Spiritbinder encounter in Mogu'shan Vaults, normal difficulty. So this fight really revolves around two aspects. The first is dealing with the damage that Gara'jal does to the current tank, and from this tank to two other random raid members via the Voodoo Doll's ability, which links those players together. The other aspect is dealing with the damage and the adds that are inside this Shadow Realm, and sending a group of players into that Shadow Realm very frequently to kill them off. So first we'll talk about the outside realm here. You'll need 2 tanks and 2 or 3 healers for this fight. We decided to use 2 healers, and the damage is not really that high, so it should be fine. And essentially, at any given time, your current tank is likely to be afflicted with Voodoo Doll, and then 2 other players randomly selected besides the second tank, since it can't ever be 2 tanks at once, will also be Voodoo Dolled with the primary tank. These 3 linked players will then mirror any damage that they take to the other 2 targets. So essentially, if you take damage as a Voodoo Doll player, it's actually coming into the raid at 300% damage, since it's 3 people getting hit by it. It also mirrors the actual damage type in addition to the damage value. So if you take Shadow Bolt damage, the damage mirrored to the other players will be Shadow. Physical is physical, and so on. So something to keep in mind for your cooldown usage. At any rate, Voodoo Dolls means that there can be a lot of spike damage to those 3 players, specifically the non-tank ones, because it mirrors all 3 things, and can be random damage from Shadow Bolts throughout the fight. This also means that mitigation on your tank to avoid white hits especially, and the special ability called Shadow Attacks are even more important. So every 8 seconds, Gara'jal will use Shadowy Attack on the current tank, and this is essentially a melee hit, but it does extra damage, around 250 to 300% of a white hit in damage. The other problem is that this ability can't be absorbed, so this means that a lot of people complain about Death Knight tanks not being as strong as other tanks on this fight because they're so reliant on absorb effects. I can't speak to that personally since I have not played with the Death Knight tank in this, but if you do have a Death Knight tank and you notice an issue, that might be related. Something to keep in mind. Anyway, so your tank can pretty reliably count on the cooldown of your boss mod for the Shadowy Attack cooldown, and just be ready with a small mitigation ability every time it's about to hit. If they can mitigate it in some way or even avoid the attack via dodge or parry, that's a lot of potential damage that will be saved on the 2 other Voodoo Doll targets. Other than that, you also need to switch tanks every once in a while. The current tank will eventually be banished, which just happened to our monk, and they'll be ported into the Shadowy Realm by themselves. This is independent of the group that you send in the Shadow Realm via the totem. So the tank will be ported in by him or herself, and inside they have 30 seconds in which to kill a Severer of Souls, which will be in the realm there. If they don't kill the Severer in 30 seconds, they die. But it has really low health. There's only 1 of them in normal, so pretty simple to do. So your tank can even spend some time in there killing shadowy minions, as long as they know they can kill their Severer before the 30-second timer is up. And then once they come back out, they should get ready to get the boss again once the now current tank gets banished into the realm as well. And that process repeats. So that's pretty much it. So I'm going to loop back through because there's a lot to talk about for the Shadow Realm stuff. But essentially that covers everything outside. Oh, I should mention that we stack up behind the boss out here because there's no reason not to, and it helps your healers quite a bit. So you can just stack up if you're in the normal realm the whole time. So for the Shadow Realm, I mentioned the Spirit Totem. So when a Spirit Totem spawns, it will have a small radius on the ground, and up to 3 players can stand inside that radius at any given time, and when the totem dies, those 3 players will be ported into the Shadow Realm. Once they cross over, they're immediately dropped to 30% of their total health, and then they have 30 seconds in which to be fully healed. If they're healed to full health, they gain a new ability, like a new action button, that's Return Soul, and this allows them to use that ability at any time to return back to the normal realm and just proceed with the fight. However, if they don't use that ability within the 30 seconds of the crossover debuff, or they're not healed to full and therefore they don't even get the ability to use, they will die instantly. So you always need to either send in a normal healer to heal everyone to full health, or you need to send in a hybrid DPS capable of healing everyone to full health at least once. You don't have to remain at full health. Once you get the ability to return soul, you can take damage below your full, but you have to get there at least one time in those 30 seconds. However, if you can, you should always send in a proper healer, because every time you heal someone in there, they will gain stacks of the spiritual innervation buff. And this is the most complicated part of this fight, but it's kind of a cool idea. So essentially, every time you are healed in the Shadow Realm, the stacks of spiritual innervation go up. And for most DPS players, they just basically get a percentage increase to their damage, mastery, crit, haste, things like that. That starts at 0 and goes up to 25% maximum. The value that it is increased from healing is based on the healing per second done within the last X seconds. I don't know what the X is. We did a lot of testing and couldn't figure it out exactly. But the important thing is that it works similar to Vengeance on tanks. You basically take a time frame, total up the healing done within that time frame to that player, and this is overhealing total, not just effective healing. So it's all healing done to them regardless of whether it was needed. Anyway, you divide it by the, whatever the divisor is, and figure out what percentage value they should get. Unfortunately, the formula is not linear. So to reach, say, 10% buff, it may only need 1 or 2 heals. To reach 20%, you might need to heal 4 or 5 seconds worth of spamming heals. But to get to 25%, you need a massive amount of healing per second on that player. So it's very exponential in the curve of healing required. What this means is that you'll find it's quite easy to get players to 20, 21% damage buff, but getting them that extra 3 or 4% is not worth the effort, especially if you're going in with 3 players, 2 of them DPS, 1 healer, which should be the case at all times. So instead, you should just focus on getting people 20 or 21% and then call that good. So as a healer, I didn't do it really in this fight because this was an early kill and I didn't understand it quite yet. But what I found works best is to immediately enter and spam myself, because as a healer, instead of damage increase, we get mana regen per second. So after 2 or 3, 4 seconds, you can get up to 20 or 30,000 mana per second really quick. And this will give you infinite mana in which to spam heals on the other 2 DPS. So heal yourself right away as a healer, and then I alternate between the other 2 DPS for 5 to 7 seconds each. So I'll get basically 2 full rounds of healing on them each time, and then they will get at least 20, 21, 22% of their buff. Spiritual innervation will last for 30 seconds from the moment of the last heal that a player receives. But keep in mind that since it's the last healing done in a certain amount of time, if they get a new heal like a hot tick, but then you don't really directly heal them for another 10 or 15 seconds, their actual percent value is going to be pretty low. So try to make sure you're healing back and forth frequently, and you're healing right up to the moment that everyone has to leave before their 30-second crossover is over. Once they come out, they'll have close to 30 seconds of that damage buff in which to attack the boss. Okay. Anyway, so last, at 20% health, he goes into Frenzy. He gains 50% damage or haste, I can't remember exactly, and then 25% of the other one. So basically he does a lot more damage. But Spirit Totems cease to spawn. So once he hits that 20% mark in Frenzies, everyone can come out of the Shadow Realm if they're in there, stack up, blow Bloodlust, heal through the damage, cooldowns, all that good stuff, and finish him off. So, yeah, just basically practice the Spirit Realm stuff and heal your Voodoo Doll targets, and you'll get it down. So that's Gara'jal the Spiritbinder. Good luck.